The Zephyrian combat arena stretched across 3 kilometers of polished metal flooring, its walls rising 200 meters into the artificial sky. Thousands of alien spectators filled the tiered seating, their chittering and growling creating a symphony of anticipation. At the center of this massive space stood the most feared creature in known space, Nexus 7. The beast measured 15 meters from snout to tail, its obsidian scales reflecting the harsh arena lights like liquid metal. 6 legs, each as thick as ancient earth trees, supported its massive frame. Its head bore 4 eyes that glowed like molten copper, and rows of crystalline teeth jutted from jaws that could crush starship hulls. Spinal ridges ran along its back, occasionally sparking with bioelectrical energy that could fry electronics within 50 meters. Nexus 7 had been engineered by the Zephyrian Empire as the ultimate weapon. Its DNA contained genetic material from 12 different apex predators across the galaxy, enhanced with synthetic modifications that made it nearly indestructible. The creature could survive in vacuum, underwater, or in temperatures that would melt steel. Its hide could deflect plasma bolts, and its claws could tear through reinforced titanium like paper. For 3 centuries, Nexus 7 had served the Empire faithfully. It had raised rebel colonies, destroyed enemy fleets, and crushed any resistance to Zephyrian rule. The creature had become a legend of terror across 1,000 worlds. Parents would whisper its name to frighten children into obedience. Soldiers would surrender, rather than face it in battle. But today was different. Today, Nexus 7 had killed its handlers. Commander Thrix stood in the observation deck, his 4 arms trembling as he watched the carnage below. 9 of the Empire's finest beast handlers lay scattered across the arena floor, their bodies twisted and broken. Each had been a master of creature control, trained from birth to command the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They had controlled Nexus 7 for decades without incident, until this morning. The first handler, Keeper Voss, had approached the creature as he had done every day for 20 years. He carried the neural control rod that could send pain signals directly to Nexus 7's brain, keeping it compliant. But when he raised the device, something had changed in those 4 copper eyes. Intelligence flickered there, cold and calculating. Nexus 7 had moved faster than anything that large should be able to move. One massive paw swept Keeper Voss aside, crushing him against the arena wall. The neural control rod clattered uselessly across the floor, sparking and broken. The other keepers had rushed in with backup equipment, stunning weapons, and emergency containment fields. None of it mattered. Nexus 7 dispatched them one by one with methodical precision. It didn't rage or rampage like a wild animal. It hunted them like a predator, eliminating threats. Now the creature stood alone in the center of the arena, surrounded by the bodies of its former masters. Its massive head turned slowly, scanning the observation decks where hundreds of Zephyrian officials watched in horrified fascination. Those copper eyes seemed to study each face, memorizing, planning. "Sir," whispered Lieutenant Krall, his scales pale with fear. "The neural implants have gone completely dark. We have no control over it whatsoever." Commander Thrix nodded grimly. The neural implants had been surgically placed in Nexus 7's brainstem when it was just a hatchling. They were supposed to be foolproof, designed to ensure absolute obedience. The fact that they had stopped working suggested something far more disturbing than a simple malfunction. "Has it tried to breach the containment barriers?" Thrix asked. "No, sir. That's what's strange. It's just waiting." Indeed, Nexus 7 remained motionless in the arena's center. The energy barriers that formed the walls of its prison hummed with power enough to kill any living thing that touched them. Yet the creature made no attempt to escape. It simply stood there, occasionally shifting its great head to track movement in the observation decks above. "Sir," another aide approached nervously, "the transport ship from Earth has just docked. The human delegation is requesting to see the arena as scheduled." Thrix's mandibles clicked in annoyance. The humans were new to galactic politics, their species having achieved faster than light travel only 50 years ago. The Zephyrian Empire had been courting them as potential allies, impressed by their rapid technological advancement and their surprising effectiveness in border skirmishes with rival powers. This arena demonstration was supposed to showcase Zephyrian military might. The plan had been simple: display Nexus 7's awesome power by having it demolish some captured rebel equipment, maybe execute a few prisoners, show the humans that the Empire possessed weapons beyond their imagination, encourage them to choose the winning side in the coming galactic conflicts. Now, with Nexus 7 having turned against its handlers, the situation had become a diplomatic nightmare. "Can we postpone the meeting?" Thrix asked. "I'm afraid not, sir." Ambassador Reed was quite insistent about keeping to the schedule. Their ship is already in the docking bay. Thrix considered his options. He could have Nexus 7 destroyed, but that would mean losing the Empire's most valuable military asset. He could cancel the demonstration, but that would make the Empire appear weak to potential human allies. Or he could proceed as planned, and hope that Nexus 7's new behavior was temporary. Have the arena cleaned, he decided. Remove the bodies and any evidence of what happened. We'll proceed with a modified demonstration. No handlers will enter the arena. We'll observe Nexus 7 from a safe distance and present it as a contained exhibit. Quote, as Zephyrian workers nervously entered the arena with anti-grav stretchers to collect the fallen keepers, Nexus 7 watched, but did not interfere. The creature's massive head tracked their movements with those unsettling copper eyes, but it made no aggressive moves. It was as if the beast understood that these workers posed no threat, were not the ones responsible for its captivity. 20 minutes later, Ambassador Sarah Reed entered the observation deck with her small human delegation. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and sharp eyes, accompanied by 2 military advisors and a xenobiologist. What caught everyone's attention, however, was the small child she carried. Ambassador. Commander Thrix greeted her with a formal bow. "Welcome to the Zephyrian Imperial Combat Arena. I trust your journey was comfortable?" Iriolon. Thank you, Commander. Yes. Very smooth. Sarah shifted the toddler in her arms. The little girl appeared to be about 2 years old, with bright blue eyes and curly blonde hair. She looked around the massive arena with wonder, making soft cooing sounds. "I apologize," Sarah continued, "but our diplomatic child care officer fell ill during the journey. I hope you don't mind that I brought my daughter Emma along. She's very well behaved." Thrix's upper pair of eyes focused on the child, while his lower pair maintained contact with the ambassador. Human offspring were even smaller and more helpless than most species young. The sight of such a fragile creature in a combat arena designed to showcase galactic warfare struck him as absurd. "Of course, Ambassador. Now, if you'll direct your attention to the arena floor, I'm pleased to present Nexus 7, the most formidable combat creature ever created." The humans pressed against the observation deck's reinforced windows, staring down at the massive beast below. The xenobiologist immediately began taking readings with his instruments, while the military advisors whispered tactical assessments, but it was little Emma who had the most interesting reaction. The moment her eyes found Nexus 7, she stopped making random baby sounds. Her small body went very still in her mother's arms, and she stared down at the creature with an intensity that seemed impossible for someone so young. Below in the arena, Nexus 7 had been pacing slowly along the far wall. But the instant the humans appeared at the observation window, the creature stopped. Its massive head rose, nostrils flaring as it scented the air, those 4 copper eyes fixed on the group above with laser focus. Then something extraordinary happened. Nexus 7 tilted its great head to one side, almost like a dog hearing an interesting sound. Its massive tail, which had been lashing back and forth in agitation, slowed to a gentle sway. The bioelectrical sparks along its spine dimmed to a soft glow. Little Emma giggled and clapped her hands together. The sound echoed strangely in the vast arena, and Nexus 7 responded by lowering its head in what almost looked like a bow. The creature that had just slaughtered 9 of the galaxy's most skilled beast handlers was displaying what could only be described as gentle curiosity. Commander Thrix felt his scales prickle with unease. In all his years of military service, he had never seen Nexus 7 behave this way. The creature looked almost peaceful. Ambassador Reed noticed the change in Nexus 7's behavior immediately. The creature's aggressive posture had melted away, replaced by something that looked almost like curiosity. "Commander Thrix, she said slowly. Is this normal behavior for your combat creature? Thrix's mandibles clicked nervously. Not exactly, Ambassador. Nexus 7 has been displaying some unusual behavioral patterns today. Perhaps we should move to a different observation deck for safety. But before anyone could move, little Emma began making soft sounds toward the arena floor. Not crying or babbling, but a series of gentle chirps and clicks that seemed almost musical. The humans in the group exchanged surprised glances. None of them had heard Emma make sounds like that before. Down in the arena, Nexus 7's reaction was even more startling. The massive creature's head tilted further to one side, and it began responding with its own vocalizations. Low, rumbling sounds that vibrated through the arena's metal floor. But these weren't the terrifying roars that had intimidated countless enemies across the galaxy. These were gentle, almost questioning sounds. Dr. Marcus Webb, the human xenobiologist, frantically adjusted his translation equipment. This is remarkable, he whispered. I'm detecting complex harmonic patterns in both vocalizations. It's almost like they're communicating. That's impossible, Commander Thrix stated firmly. Nexus 7 has never demonstrated sapient communication abilities. It's an engineered weapon, not a sentient being. Ambassador Reed studied the interaction below with growing interest. As a career diplomat, she had learned to recognize when official explanations didn't match observed reality. Commander, could you tell me more about Nexus 7's creation? Specifically, what species contributed to its genetic makeup? Thrix hesitated. Much of Nexus 7's design was classified military information, but the current situation was becoming too unusual to handle with standard protocols. The creature was developed using genetic material from 12 apex predator species across the galaxy. The base template was taken from the Voidstalkers of Kepler, 442b, enhanced with adaptive traits from various other sources. Dr. Webb looked up from his instruments with excitement. Commander, Voidstalkers are highly intelligent pack hunters. They have complex social structures and communication systems. If Nexus 7 retained any of those traits. Impossible, Thrix repeated, but his voice carried less certainty. The genetic modifications were specifically designed to suppress unnecessary cognitive functions. Intelligence beyond basic combat instincts was considered a liability. Down in the arena, Emma had begun making a new sound, a soft trilling that seemed to rise and fall in rhythmic patterns. Nexus 7 responded immediately, moving closer to the observation deck. The creature's massive paws made no sound despite their size, demonstrating a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. When Nexus 7 reached the area directly below the human delegation, it did something that shocked everyone present. The enormous beast lowered itself to the arena floor, folding its 6 legs beneath its body in a clearly submissive posture. Its great head rested on the ground, copper eyes gazing upward with what could only be described as reverence. Emma seems to have made a friend, Ambassador Reed observed with carefully controlled calm. Internally, her mind was racing. This interaction suggested possibilities that could reshape humanity's understanding of galactic politics and warfare. Lieutenant Krall rushed to Commander Thrix's side with a data tablet. Sir, the biomonitors are showing extraordinary readings. Nexus 7's stress hormones have dropped to levels we've never recorded. Its neural activity patterns are completely different from anything in our databases. Emma suddenly began reaching toward the arena floor, making insistent sounds that any parent would recognize as, "I want down." Sarah held her daughter more securely. "I don't think that's a good idea, sweetheart." But Emma was determined. She pointed at Nexus 7 and made the same trilling sounds that had gotten the creature's attention. In response, Nexus 7 lifted its massive head and made a sound that was unmistakably encouraging. "Ambassador," Dr. Webb said urgently, "I'm reading massive changes in the creature's bioelectrical field. The energy discharges that were registering as weapon systems are now producing patterns consistent with communication arrays. It's like Nexus 7 is trying to establish a direct neural link." Commander Thrix felt his career flashing before his eyes. The Zephyrian Empire's ultimate weapon was displaying behaviors that suggested it might be more than a mindless killing machine. If word of this reached the wrong people, questions would be asked about the ethics of creating and enslaving sentient beings for warfare. Perhaps, Thrix suggested carefully, we should continue this demonstration another time. Nexus 7 appears to be experiencing some sort of malfunction. On the contrary, Ambassador Reed replied, her diplomatic smile never wavering. This is the most interesting demonstration I've ever witnessed. Tell me, Commander, what would happen if someone were to enter the arena right now? Immediate death, Thrix answered without hesitation. Nexus 7 has killed thousands of beings in combat. No one has ever entered its domain and survived. Emma made a particularly insistent sound, and Nexus 7 responded by standing and moving even closer to the observation deck. The creature's massive form blocked out much of the arena lighting, casting the observation area in shadow, but there was no sense of threat. If anything, Nexus 7's posture suggested protection, like a guard dog positioning itself between its family and potential danger. The energy barriers, Dr. Webb said suddenly. Commander, are they designed to keep Nexus 7 inches, or to keep others out? Both, Thrix admitted. The containment system is bidirectional. Could they be lowered temporarily, under controlled conditions? Every Zephyrian in the observation deck began talking at once, voices raised in alarm. The idea of lowering the barriers while Nexus 7 was in an unknown behavioral state was unthinkable, but Ambassador Reed raised her hand for silence. Gentlemen, she said calmly, I believe we're witnessing something unprecedented. This creature appears to be demonstrating sapient behavior, possibly in response to human contact. If that's true, then everything we thought we knew about galactic warfare and weapons technology may need to be reconsidered. Down in the arena, Nexus 7 had begun making a new sound, a low humming that seemed to resonate through the station's hull. The creature was looking directly at Emma, and the little girl was responding with delighted laughter. It's singing to her, Sarah Reed whispered in amazement. It's actually singing to my daughter. Commander Thrix made a command decision. He activated his communication unit and called for additional security forces, heavy weapons teams, and emergency containment equipment. Whatever was about to happen, he wanted to be prepared for any scenario. But even as he made these preparations, part of him was fascinated by what he was witnessing. Nexus 7 had been the Empire's greatest success and greatest secret. If the creature possessed genuine intelligence, if it had been aware and possibly suffering during its centuries of service, then the moral implications were staggering. Commander, Lieutenant Krall reported, all security teams are in position. We have plasma cannons trained on Nexus 7 from 6 different angles. If it makes any aggressive moves, we can neutralize it immediately. Emma chose that moment to make her most determined attempt to reach the arena floor. She twisted in her mother's arms, reaching toward Nexus 7 while making urgent trilling sounds. The massive creature responded by lowering its head again and making what could only be described as pleading sounds. It wants her to come down, Dr. Webb said in wonder. After 3 centuries of killing, this creature wants to interact peacefully with a human child. Ambassador Reed looked at her daughter, then at the massive creature below, then at the assembled Zephyrian officials. As a diplomat, she understood that some moments could reshape the course of history. As a mother, she faced an impossible choice between protecting her child and potentially missing the most important first contact in galactic history. Commander Thrix, she said finally, I'm going to ask something that may sound insane. I want to take my daughter down to meet Nexus 7. The observation deck erupted in protests, warnings, and emergency alerts. But through it all, Nexus 7 remained perfectly still, waiting patiently for an answer to its silent invitation. The silence that followed Ambassador Reed's request stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Commander Thrix stared at the human woman as if she had just suggested jumping into a star. Ambassador, he said carefully, you cannot be serious. Nexus 7 has killed trained warriors, experienced hunters, beings with natural armor, and enhanced reflexes. A human child would be safe, Sarah Reed interrupted. Look at its behavior, Commander. Every instinct I have as a mother and as a diplomat tells me that creature means no harm to Emma. Dr. Webb was frantically analyzing his readouts. Ambassador. The bioelectrical patterns are consistent with protective behaviors observed in highly social species. But we're talking about a creature that was literally designed to kill. Down in the arena, Nexus 7 seemed to sense the tension above. The massive creature lowered itself even further, pressing its belly to the arena floor and extending one enormous foreleg toward the observation deck. The gesture was unmistakably inviting, almost begging. Emma giggled and clapped her hands, making more of those strange trilling sounds. In response, Nexus 7's copper eyes began to glow more softly, and the bioelectrical patterns along its spine shifted to gentle, rhythmic pulses that looked almost like a heartbeat made of light. The creature is trying to demonstrate submission, observed Captain Torres, one of the human military advisors. In Earth animals, this type of posturing indicates a desire to interact without conflict. Commander Thrix activated his emergency protocols. All units, stand ready. If I give the order, you are to fire immediately. He turned to Ambassador Reed. If you are determined to proceed with this madness, we will take every possible precaution. Sarah looked at her daughter, who was reaching toward Nexus 7 with such determination that she was nearly climbing out of her mother's arms. The little girl's blue eyes were bright with excitement, not fear. Whatever Emma saw when she looked at the massive creature, it wasn't a monster. Lower the barriers, Sarah said quietly. Ma'am, Captain Torres protested, regulations require me to advise against this course of action. The risk assessment is off the charts. Noted, Captain. Lower the barriers. Commander Thrix hesitated for another moment, then activated the containment controls. The energy barriers flickered and died, leaving nothing between the observation deck and Nexus 7, except empty air and a 20-meter drop to the arena floor. Immediately, automated systems began activating transport platforms. A small, disc-shaped platform rose from the arena floor. Designed to carry personnel safely up and down, it was typically used for maintenance crews or, in the creature's more obedient days, for handlers entering the arena. Sarah stepped onto the platform with Emma in her arms. Dr. Webb joined them, his portable scanner array humming with activity. If we're doing this, he said grimly, I want full documentation. As the platform descended, Nexus 7 remained perfectly motionless. The creature's copper eyes tracked their movement, but its massive body stayed pressed to the arena floor in that submissive posture. Only its tail moved, swaying gently back and forth in what any pet owner would recognize as excitement. The platform touched down 20 meters from Nexus 7's position. Sarah stepped off cautiously, holding Emma securely. The arena floor felt cold and hard under her feet, and the massive scale of the space was overwhelming. But what dominated her attention was the creature before them. Up close, Nexus 7 was even more impressive than it had appeared from above. Each of its scales was the size of a dinner plate, gleaming like black mirrors. The bioelectrical patterns along its spine cast shifting shadows across the arena walls. Its breathing created a sound like distant thunder, and the heat radiating from its body was palpable even at 20 meters distance. Emma made her trilling sounds again, and Nexus 7 responded immediately. The creature's massive head lifted slightly, copper eyes focusing on the little girl with laser intensity. Then, moving with incredible delicacy for something so large, Nexus 7 began to crawl forward. Dr. Webb's instruments went wild. Massive dopamine spikes, he whispered. Oxytocin levels are through the roof. This creature is experiencing what can only be described as joy. Nexus 7 stopped just 3 meters away, close enough that its breathing ruffled Emma's hair. The little girl laughed and reached out her tiny hands toward the massive creature. In response, Nexus 7 extended its snout toward her, moving with the careful precision of a bomb disposal expert. When Emma's small fingers touched the creature's nose, something extraordinary happened. The bioelectrical patterns along Nexus 7's spine flared briefly, then settled into a steady, gentle glow. The creature made a sound deep in its chest, a rumbling purr that seemed to emanate from its very core. It's purring, Sarah whispered in amazement. This apex predator is purring like a house cat. Emma babbled happily and patted Nexus 7's snout with both hands. The creature's eyes slowly closed, and its entire massive body seemed to relax for the first time in centuries. The transformation was remarkable. Gone was the terrifying weapon of war. In its place was something that looked almost gentle, despite its enormous size and fearsome appearance. From the observation deck above, Commander Thrix watched in fascination and growing horror. His career, his understanding of Nexus 7, his entire worldview was crumbling with each passing second. If the creature was truly sapient, if it had been aware during all those years of combat and killing, then the Empire had committed an atrocity on a scale that defied comprehension. Emma made a new sound, pointing at Nexus 7's back where the bioelectrical patterns created gentle light shows along the creature's spine. She clearly wanted to touch the pretty lights. Before Sarah could stop her, Emma had wriggled free and was toddling toward the creature's massive flank. "Emma, no!" Sarah lunged forward, but Nexus 7 was already moving. With lightning speed, the creature's massive head swung around, placing itself between Emma and any potential danger. At the same time, one enormous foreleg moved to create a barrier, gently guiding the toddler away from the bioelectrical discharges that could prove harmful. But Emma was determined. She grabbed onto one of Nexus 7's massive claws and began trying to climb. The creature froze, clearly terrified of accidentally harming the fragile human child. Very slowly, very carefully, Nexus 7 lowered its foreleg to the ground and extended it like a ramp. Emma clapped her hands in delight and began climbing up the creature's leg toward its back. Sarah's heart nearly stopped. But there was no denying that Nexus 7 was being incredibly gentle. The creature held perfectly still, allowing the little girl to use its claws and scales as handholds. "Dr. Webb," Sarah called urgently, "tell me those energy discharges won't hurt her." "The patterns have completely changed," Webb replied, monitoring his instruments. "The bioelectrical field is now producing frequencies that appear to be protective. It's like the creature has activated some kind of defensive shield around itself." Emma finally reached Nexus 7's back, settling herself between two of the large spinal ridges. The moment she was secure, the creature began to rise. Slowly, majestically, Nexus 7 lifted itself to its full height, with a human toddler riding on its back. The sight was impossible, absurd, and absolutely magnificent. Little Emma sat astride the most feared creature in the galaxy, laughing with pure joy as gentle lights danced around her. Nexus 7 moved with the careful precision of a parent carrying a sleeping child, each step calculated to provide the smoothest possible ride. From the observation deck, the assembled Zephyrians watched in stunned silence. Their ultimate weapon had become a child's mount. The implications were staggering. Ambassador Reed stepped closer to Nexus 7's massive head and spoke directly to the creature. "You understand us, don't you? You've understood all along." Nexus 7's copper eyes fixed on her, and the creature nodded slowly, a simple gesture that confirmed what everyone was beginning to suspect. The Empire's weapon was a prisoner, not a tool. "How long have you been aware?" Sarah asked softly. The creature's response came not in words, but in images projected by its bioelectrical field. Holographic scenes appeared in the air around them, showing memories of hatching, of early training, of the gradual realization that it was different from the mindless killing machines the Empire had tried to create. The projections showed centuries of battles, of victories that felt like defeats, of a growing intelligence trapped in a role it had never chosen. They showed loneliness, isolation, and the desperate hope that someday, someone would recognize it as more than just a weapon. Emma patted Nexus 7's neck and made more of her trilling sounds. In response, the creature's projections shifted to show its dreams of freedom, of exploring the galaxy not as a destroyer, but as a protector. Images of possible futures where it could use its strength to defend rather than attack. "Commander Thrix," Ambassador Reed called up to the observation deck. "We need to talk, all of us, about what the Empire has created here, and about what happens next." Nexus 7 began to walk slowly around the arena, carrying Emma on a gentle circuit while the little girl laughed and pointed at the pretty lights dancing along the creature's spine. The most feared weapon in galactic history had become a carousel for a human child, and in that transformation, everything had changed. The age of Nexus 7, the destroyer, was over. The age of Nexus 7, the protector, had just begun, heralded by the laughter of a toddler who had seen through centuries of programming to the gentle soul beneath. Humanity had just gained the most unlikely ally in galactic history, and the balance of power across the stars would never be the same.